In August 2019, the disappearance of Casey Jones and her children from Marion County, Florida, sent ripples of concern throughout the community. While some family members continued to receive text messages purportedly from her, their growing unease prompted them to alert the authorities. What the ensuing investigation revealed was a tapestry of shock and disbelief that enveloped all who learned of it. What fate befell Casey and her children? Who could be behind their vanishing? Nestled in the heart of Florida, Marion County is a treasure trove of natural splendor, historical richness, and contemporary conveniences. Home to over 370,000 residents, this dynamic locale is celebrated for its hospitable nature and flourishing economy. Guests of Marion County can immerse themselves in the breathtaking Ocala National Forest, wander through the charming streets of historic downtown Ocala, or indulge in a day of excitement at nearby theme parks. The county is also replete with an array of exquisite dining establishments, shopping venues, and cultural experiences, making it an idyllic choice for both a weekend retreat and an extended stay. And it is within this captivating setting that our tale unfolds. On the day of Halloween in 2017, Michael Jones and Casey Jones exchanged vows, marking the beginning of their beautiful journey together. Earlier that year, they had been graced with the arrival of their lovely daughter, Mary. However, their tale is rich with history that predates their union. Michael had previously been married to Sarah Jones, with whom he shares 3 children, while Casey had her own past with Richard Bowers, with whom she had 2 sons, Cameron and Preston. Despite their individual histories, the spark between Michael and Casey ignited a new chapter, leading them to create a family of their own. By 2018, their joy multiplied with the birth of another daughter, Ayanna, who joined the family. Cameron and Preston thrived in their new home with Casey and their stepfather, Michael, nestled in the charming Southeast 86 Terrace of Marion County, Florida. Yet, tranquility was soon disrupted by unforeseen events. In July 2019, Richard Bowers received a text from Casey, requesting his assistance in caring for their sons, 10-year-old Cameron and 5-year-old Preston. Richard consented, and they arranged to meet at the Leesburg Mall on July 27, 2019. During their correspondence, Casey mentioned that Michael would be bringing the boys, as she was recuperating from back surgery, a familiar situation for her. On the day of the meeting, Richard arrived at the mall, excited to reunite with his sons, who were brought by Michael in high spirits. Shortly thereafter, on August 1, 2019, Nikki Jones, Casey's mother, received a message from her daughter asking if she could care for her 2 younger children, 2-year-old Mercalli and 1-year-old Ayanna, for a few days. Nikki, accustomed to looking after the little ones, gladly accepted the request. Michael soon arrived at Nikki's home in Dunalone, Florida, with the 2 girls. Everything appeared to be in order, and the girls were thrilled to be spending time with their grandmother. As the days went by, Nikki received yet another text message from her daughter, Casey. This time, Casey mentioned that she was feeling unwell and asked if Nikki could look after the girls for a few more days. Without any hesitation, Nikki, being the caring grandmother she was, agreed to help out. While taking care of Mercalli and Ayanna, Nikki couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss with her daughter, Casey. It struck her as odd that Casey was only communicating through text messages. Despite her concerns, Nikki held on to the hope that everything was all right. On August 10, 2019, at around 1:30 p.m., Richard dropped off his 2 sons, Cameron and Preston, at a prearranged location as per the agreement with Casey. Michael then picked them up. Little did Richard know that this would be the final time he would see his boys alive. On August 14, 2019, Michael arrived at his mother-in-law's house to collect his daughters, Mercalli and Ayanna. In the days that followed, Nikki tried repeatedly to get in touch with her daughter, Casey, through texts and calls. But all her attempts were in vain as the phone went straight to voicemail, and she received no response. Richard shared the same worries. On August 22, 2019, he tried to contact her to wish their son, Preston, a happy birthday, but received no response. Friends and acquaintances also found it odd that Casey had not been active on social media lately, as she used to post regularly. The last post she made was on August 26, 2019, leading people to question what might have happened to her. By September, Nikki's worry for her daughter and grandchildren had reached a critical point. Therefore, on September 14, 2019, Nikki took matters into her own hands and contacted the Marion County Sheriff's Office to request a well-being check on her family. In response to the request, Deputy Chase King was dispatched to Michael and Casey's home on the same day to ensure their safety. Unfortunately, upon arrival, the house appeared deserted, with no response to Deputy King's knocks. Evidently, the house seemed abandoned. Determined to unravel the mystery, Chase sought out Johnny Murphy, a neighbor who lived nearby. Although Johnny was not well acquainted with Michael and Cassie, he had seen them around the neighborhood occasionally. When questioned about any unusual occurrences, Johnny recounted an encounter with a property manager named Patrick 2 weeks prior. Patrick had requested Johnny's presence for a walkthrough of Michael and Cassie's residence due to a suspicious odor. Upon entering the house, Johnny was met with a strong, unpleasant smell lingering in the air. At that time, the house still contained furniture and personal belongings. Continuing the investigation, Chase reached out to the landlord via phone. The landlord disclosed that he had started the eviction process for Michael and Cassie around August 23, 2019. However, he informed Cassie about the eviction. She claimed to have severed ties with Michael and directed him to contact Michael directly. He then contacted Michael, who promptly messaged back, stating his departure and leaving the key on the counter. Despite numerous attempts to reach Michael afterwards, he was unsuccessful. Following the couple's departure, the landlord mentioned that one of his property managers had cleaned the house and made repairs. The mystery surrounding Michael, Cassie, and her 4 children continued to deepen. Subsequently, Sergeant Mike Moore arrived at the scene to assist Deputy Chase. Together, they crossed the threshold of the house, only after receiving permission from the landlord. Upon entering, the pungent odor of decay enveloped them like a wave crashing against the shore. The officers were no strangers to such a scent, having encountered it before in their line of duty. As they traversed the empty rooms, save for the kitchen appliances, their investigation was abruptly halted by the landlord's unexpected request for them to vacate the premises. Reluctantly, they agreed. Subsequently, the elite Major Crimes Unit was summoned, and a flurry of officers descended upon the scene. It was evident that something was gravely wrong, and they were unwavering in their resolve to uncover the truth. It was soon revealed that Cassie owned a 2017 white Chrysler Pacifica van with a missing back window. Yet the vehicle was nowhere to be found. Given the alarming circumstances surrounding the disappearance of Cassie and her children, the officers swiftly entered their information into the missing persons database and alerted their colleagues to be on the lookout for the distinctive van. In the early hours of September 15, 2019, detectives toiled tirelessly to unravel the mystery of Michael, Cassie, and their children's whereabouts. Their initial efforts to reach Michael by phone proved futile, as the call was met with an unreachable error message. Undeterred, the detectives pressed on with their investigation, eventually contacting Michael's ex-wife, Sarah Jones, at 10:16 a.m. that same day. A thorough phone interview ensued, with the hope of extracting any valuable information that could lead them to the vanished family. Sarah disclosed that she had seen Michael and Cassie last on Friday, September 13, 2019, between 5:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. at a McDonald's on Reed Street in Palatka, Florida. Sarah had arranged a meeting with Michael for a visitation concerning the children. Meanwhile, Cassie remained in their pristine white Chrysler Pacifica. Sarah observed that both Michael and Cassie seemed to be in excellent health. However, she noted that none of the couple's children were present that day. When detectives inquired about alternative methods to locate the family, Sarah expressed her uncertainty regarding their whereabouts. This concluded the phone interview with her. The detectives swiftly recognized the necessity of corroborating Sarah's account. They assigned Detective Simpson the task of visiting the McDonald's in Patka to obtain the surveillance footage from the encounter between Sarah and Michael. By noon that day, Detective Simpson reported having meticulously reviewed the video from the specified date and time. Yet, he could not find the white family van in the recordings. Attempts to contact Sarah again proved futile. It was not until approximately 2:17 p.m. on September 15th that they received a voicemail from Sarah, which contradicted her earlier statement. In the message, she disclosed that she had not seen Cassie on September 13th, 2019, although she insisted that her interaction with Michael at McDonald's was as she had initially described. The detectives found themselves perplexed by Sarah's inconsistent statements. They promptly reached out to her once more, and she reiterated the contents of her voicemail. Sarah was informed that a detective was at the McDonald's and would be reaching out for further details regarding her encounter. Shortly thereafter, Detective Simpson, who met with Sarah, reported that she had entirely retracted her previous statement, denying ever being at the McDonald's with Michael on that fateful Friday, September 13th, 2019. This turn of events heightened the detectives' suspicions, leading them to conclude that they could not rely on Sarah's words and would need to pursue alternative avenues to discover the truth. The detectives were left pondering about what she might be concealing. On September 15th, 2019, at 2:17 p.m., the detectives engaged in a phone interview with Michael's mother. She disclosed that Sarah, Michael's ex-wife, had informed her that she had last seen Michael and Cassie on Friday, September 13th, 2019. To their surprise, Michael's mother mentioned that she had exchanged text messages with her son on that same Friday, where he assured her that both he and Cassie were in good health. He even mentioned their plans to visit Cassie's family in Kentucky. The interview ended, leaving the detectives with more questions than answers. At 3:07 p.m., detectives received an unexpected voice message from an unknown number, Michael himself. He revealed that he had heard about law enforcement searching for him and his family. Michael admitted that he was out of town but would return later that day or the following morning. However, despite numerous attempts, the detectives were unable to reach him as their calls went unanswered. During this time, Richard, Cassie's ex-husband, called in. He was on vacation in the United Kingdom and had come across a Facebook post seeking information on Cassie. Richard recounted a troubling conversation he had with his sons, Cameron and Preston Bowers, who had spent time with Michael and Cassie from late July to early August of 2019. Cameron had shared with his father that Michael, Cassie's current husband, was physically abusive towards her. According to Cameron, Michael and Cassie engaged in violent physical altercations almost every night, lasting for hours. Shockingly, he also disclosed that Michael would take out his anger on the children in the household, resorting to hitting them with cloth hangers or any object he could find when he was upset. The officers expressed their appreciation to Richard for providing them with such crucial information. At approximately 5:30 p.m., Detective Simpson arrived at the entrance of Sarah's home on Sunbeam Road in Jacksonville, Florida. He had been summoned to delve into the inconsistencies surrounding her accounts of Michael Jones and his family. After a few knocks yielded no reply, he patiently lingered in the parking lot until he finally spotted Sarah's vehicle approaching. As she stepped out, Sarah began to share her narrative regarding Michael, a relationship that had commenced in 2007. She elaborated on their marriage in 2011, which ultimately unraveled due to Michael's infidelity with his current spouse, Cassie. Sarah noted that their communication had dwindled significantly since April 2018. However, in the latter part of July 2019, Michael reached out to inform her of his impending separation from Cassie. In the weeks that followed, he made several visits to see the children, taking them to Marion County. Sarah disclosed that on July 26, 2019, Michael had taken their children and returned them just before the school year commenced on August 11, 2019. He continued to visit on subsequent weekends, allowing Sarah to pursue her work as an Uber driver. On the evening of August 30th, 2019, Michael had come to stay at her residence, remaining there until the daytime of September 10th, 2019, when he departed for personal obligations. Sarah recounted that upon receiving a call from detectives inquiring about Cassay's location, she confronted Michael. He instructed her to inform the detectives that they had been seen together at McDonald's on September 13th. After concluding her call with the detectives, she pressed Michael once more, urging him to resolve the unfolding situation. He complied, contacting the detectives using their son's cell phone. Subsequently, Michael departed from Sarah's home, claiming he was heading to the Marion County Sheriff's Office to address the matter at hand. Just an hour prior to Detective Simpson's arrival at the residence, Michael had departed, leaving behind a sleek black Acer laptop intended for their children. In a calculated move, he had meticulously erased all data from the device before relinquishing it. Sarah graciously extended an offer to Detective Simpson, suggesting he examine the laptop for any potential evidence. With a swift motion, Detective Simpson completed a consent to search form, which Sarah promptly signed, allowing him to take possession of the laptop before departing the home. Later that evening, at approximately 8 p.m. on September 15, 2019, deputies Wade Bennett and Chris McDonald from the Brantley County Sheriff's Office were summoned to investigate a solitary vehicle accident in a serene rural locale near the Florida-Georgia border. Upon their arrival, they discovered a white Chrysler van that had careened off the road, colliding with a concrete culvert. To their astonishment, the driver was none other than Michael, the individual they had been searching for throughout the day. Remarkably unharmed, Michael assured them he was fine when questioned about his condition. However, Deputy Bennett's keen senses detected an ominous odor, one he had encountered numerous times in his law enforcement career, the unmistakable scent of decay. Instinctively, he gripped his service weapon, preparing for the worst. When he inquired about the source of the smell, he braced himself for an explanation, but nothing could have steeled him for Michael's chilling revelation. With an eerie composure, Michael disclosed that the odor emanated from his wife, Cassay. Stunned, Bennett sought clarification, only to hear Michael calmly confess that he had taken his wife's life, her body resting within the vehicle, and that he required handcuffs. Without hesitation, the deputies called for reinforcements, and soon the area was enveloped in a flurry of police activity as the grim reality unfolded. Not only had he taken his wife's life, but their 4 children, Cameron, Preston, Mercalli, and Ayanna, were also dead. The officers were stunned and horrified, but they maintained their composure. They followed Michael's lead as he took them to a wooded area where he'd hidden the bodies. This was about 6 miles from the crash site. The bodies were discovered in plastic storage totes that were covered with cut palm fronds. Following this, Michael was taken into custody. During the interrogation that followed, detectives listened in shock as he recounted the events leading up to Cassay and the children's deaths. Michael revealed that he and Cassay had been together for 5 years and married for 2. They'd met while working together at a veterinary clinic. Michael had been going through a divorce with Sarah when he started dating Cassay. Michael and Cassay's relationship was not without problems. However, on July 10, 2019, things took a turn for the worse. On that particular day, she'd called him at work and accused him of cheating. According to Michael, he'd hung up on her and then turned off his phone. But when he arrived home, Cassay wouldn't leave him alone. She followed him around the house, shining her phone's flashlight in his face and tapping him on the head with her cell phone. Their argument escalated into a yelling match, and Michael ordered Cassay to leave. but Kase picked up a metal baseball bat. In a fit of rage, Michael took the bat from her and hit her head repeatedly until she died. Afterward, he wrapped her up and put her in a tote, which he placed in the master bedroom closet. The children were all asleep when this incident took place. According to Michael, there were bloodstains on the master bedroom door, and he cleaned them up as best as he could. He knew he had to act fast and get rid of the evidence before anyone found out what he'd done, so he placed the metal baseball bat and other items used to clean up the blood in trash bags and disposed of them in a dumpster on Highway 441. As Michael's harrowing confession unfolded before the detectives, the narrative grew increasingly unsettling. After the tragic demise of his wife, he found himself ensnared in a web of deceit, compelled to maintain the illusion of her existence. To achieve this, he resorted to utilizing her phone for messages and social media posts, crafting a facade that she was still alive. This perverse charade soon morphed into a grim reality. When the detectives inquired whether he could have disengaged from the confrontation with Kase before it escalated, he conceded that he could have. Yet, he opted to remain, allowing the situation to spiral into chaos. Michael further acknowledged his role in the logistics of transferring Cameron and Preston Bowers to their father, Richard. The boys had spent 2 weeks with him, and Michael confirmed that he later retrieved them from Leesburg. He also recounted dropping off his daughters, Mercalli and Ayanna Jones, at their grandmother's residence, only to collect them at a later time. As Michael Jones continued his chilling narrative, he divulged the horrific specifics of how he had extinguished the lives of all 4 children. He began with Cameron, recounting the late-night intrusion into the children's sanctuary, where he forcibly removed Cameron from his bed, choking him with his bare hands. As Cameron writhed in desperation, Michael pressed his knee into the boy's chest, tightening his grip until all resistance ceased. Once the ordeal concluded, he concealed Cameron's lifeless form within a suitcase, relegating it to the corner of the east bedroom. The subsequent night, Michael turned his attention to Preston. With his hands still aching from the previous night's struggle, he devised a different method. He entered the guest bathroom, filled the bathtub, and used a washcloth to obstruct the drain. Then he stealthily approached the children's room, where Preston lay in peaceful slumber. With a zip tie in hand, he encircled it around Preston's neck, pulling it taut until the boy's breaths became desperate gasps. Michael then forcefully ushered Preston into the lavatory and plunged his visage into the bathtub, exerting pressure until his struggles ceased. Following Preston's demise, he encased his remains in a refuse bag and left him within the bathroom for numerous days. Subsequently, he transferred him into a tote. Additionally, he utilized kitty litter to absorb the bodily fluids emanating from the decaying corpses. After extinguishing the lives of his 2 sons, Michael found himself within the confines of Bellevue City Hall alongside his 2 daughters, pondering his subsequent actions. He whiled away hours seated there, fixating on the Bellevue Police Department, contemplating whether to surrender himself or await contact. However, trepidation held him captive, preventing him from mustering the fortitude to submit to the authorities. He obliterated Kase's cellular device and discarded it before aimlessly traversing the streets for hours. Upon his eventual return home, the darkness within him had taken root, prompting him to terminate the lives of his 2 young daughters. Michael filled the tub with water and retrieved Mercalli, who was still awake. He escorted her to the bathroom and submerged her until her struggles ceased. He repeated the same harrowing act with Ayanna on that fateful day, extinguishing her tender life as well. Both girls were interred within the same tote. Michael proceeded to disclose that in late August or early September 2019, he loaded all the deceased bodies, previously ensconced in totes, into the family's van. He also employed cleansers, mothballs, and insect repellent within the vehicle in an attempt to mask the putrid stench of the decomposing remains. During the interrogation, Michael admitted to deceiving his ex-wife, Sarah, regarding his relationship with Casey. He led her to believe they had separated, when in actuality he had taken her life along with those of their 4 children. Even more disturbing was his revelation that he coached Sarah on what to convey to the authorities when they contacted her on September 15, 2019. In a moment of stark honesty, he confessed to the detectives that Sarah was entirely unaware of the heinous acts and had no involvement whatsoever. He maintained that their connection was solely centered around co-parenting, devoid of any other entanglements. After departing from Sarah's residence, he feigned a journey to Marion County to engage with law enforcement, but instead he absconded from the state. Overcome with a sense of disorientation and uncertainty regarding his next steps, he meandered aimlessly until he spotted a secluded area off the roadside, prompting him to stop for a moment of relief. It was in that grim instant that he resolved to extract the containers, harboring the remains from the family van, and conceal them within the depths of the woods, leaving behind the tote containing Casey Jones's body. He then resumed his journey northward, but at some juncture he lost control of the vehicle, resulting in a crash. In light of these harrowing admissions, the detectives inquired whether Michael had been under the influence of any substances during the commission of the murders. He asserted that he was entirely sober and possessed a lucid mind. Michael revealed that he had extinguished the lives of his children to perpetuate the illusion that Casey was still alive, driven in part by his anger towards her, as the children were intrinsically linked to her. Thus concluded the interrogation, leaving the detectives to ponder the depths of his malevolence and the tragic loss of innocent lives. Charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder for his children and 1 count of second-degree murder for his wife, Michael endured a protracted wait of 3 years before his trial commenced. In November 2022, he ultimately entered a guilty plea to all charges. The court then proceeded to the penalty phase, where both prosecution and defense articulated their positions regarding the appropriate punishment for Michael. The prosecution advocated for the death penalty, while the defense contended that life imprisonment was a more fitting consequence. During this critical phase, a distinguished psychologist, Dr. Harold Burstein, lent his expertise to the defense's case. He elaborated on Michael's psychological condition, asserting that after the tragic loss of Casey, Michael began to hear her voice. Dr. Harold noted that these auditory hallucinations grew more pronounced over time, leaving Michael powerless to resist them. According to Dr. Harold, Casey's voice insisted that their children would find greater safety with her, compelling Michael to follow her directives and ultimately commit the heinous acts. In support of Michael's defense, Dr. Stephen Nelson, a neurologist, was called to the stand. He testified that Michael's brain was particularly susceptible to mental disorders, a consequence of prior head injuries, significant life traumas, and a familial history of mental illness. Dr. Nelson articulated that Michael's impaired decision-making was attributable to neurological irregularities. Nevertheless, despite the defense's compelling arguments, the jury delivered a verdict recommending the death penalty for Michael, culminating in his sentencing on April 28, 2023. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with tension as the judge pronounced the sentence. Yet, Michael's legal team remains resolute, announcing their intention to appeal the ruling. Thus, with the death sentence imposed, the saga of Michael Jones reaches its somber conclusion.